Carissa Danes with Easy Button Employee Relations here, and welcome to Paraphrase Friday. Today we are going to talk about the PUMP Act, or Providing Urgent Maternal Protections for Nursing Mothers Act, that was passed in 2022, but really came into the limelight in 2023. And now with this new Pregnancy Workers Fairness Act, I feel like everything's kind of all coming to the surface. And so I wanted to touch base on the PUMP Act with you guys today and just make sure that we're understanding it, that we're in compliance with it, and that if there's any questions that you have, I'm hoping that this video will answer those questions for you. So the PUMP Act is something that is covered under two entities. It's covered under the FLSA, Fair Labor Standards Act, and then it's also covered under the Department of Labor as well. So from the Fair Labor Standards Act perspective, it's really talking about break times and break periods and how employees should be paid when they are taking the time to express milk. So an employee that is expressing milk can take a break whenever they feel that it is necessary. You can certainly try to set up a schedule, but if they find that they need to take a break before that scheduled break is actually coming to existence, then they need to be able to take that break. And this break needs to be either paid if they're going to be having to answer emails or be available to be called back out onto the work floor or take a phone call or something like that. It needs to be paid if they're going to be working or required to work. Now, you can require them not to be paid if and only if you already have policies in place and everyone else is treated the same way. So, for example, if you have a policy that says you get 2 15-minute breaks that are paid, but if you were to take a break that gets to 30 minutes, you need to clock out because that is considered a lunch. So let's just use that as an example. If the employee comes out from expressing the milk at 28 minutes and they did not hit that 30 minutes, they are getting paid for that break. We do not have any control as employers over how long it's taking them to pump either. This is something that they are able to control, and there's not really a whole lot that we can do. Now, if they come out at 31 minutes, you could require them to clock out and not be paid for that 30 minutes as long as they were not required to do any work while they were taking that off or taking that time off, and as long as everyone else is treated the same when they take over 30 minutes for that time frame. I know this gets confusing, but this is just the way it is. And I like to give you guys examples so you understand it a little bit more. Now, this can go on for 1 year. So that is how long they are able to take as many breaks as they need to express milk at work. That being said, there's another component that kind of adds on to this from the Department of Labor, which talks a little bit more about the location and the functionality of the location that the employee must have in order to express milk. So this room needs to be somewhere that is not going to be interrupted. So people are not going to be coming in and out. There's got to be maybe a lock on the door or a sign on the door. If there is a window, we need to go ahead and make sure that that's covered up, or there's a way that they can be covered, that can be covered up while the employee is in there expressing milk. You do not need to have necessarily a designated space for expressing milk, but you do need to make sure that it meets that criteria. It also needs to have a chair, so they're not sitting on the floor. It needs to have a table, so the pump is not sitting on the floor. There needs to be an electrical outlet for people who need to use that. And then there also needs to be a space for the employee to be able to store the milk should that be something that they're not able to provide themselves. This can be a refrigerator in the break room. There is nothing wrong with that. It cannot be in the bathroom. Under no circumstances can you require an employee to use the bathroom for pumping. Even if you have nowhere else for them to express milk, you may not require them to use the bathroom for pumping. That is very important that we understand that. That being said, any employees that are under 50 employees do not have to abide by this act if and only if they are able to provide enough circumstantial evidence that it is going to meet the undue hardship laws. As we know, undue hardship is a really high bar to hit. So something that may potentially be an example would be, let's say this is a bank and that's the only person that's there at the end of the night. And you would have to literally close the bank for this employee to walk away and be able to express milk for the break. Now, if you're losing money or if you're going to get customer complaints because the bank closed early, that may be something that you could provide as an undue hardship and see what happens with it. It's probably something that you're going to want to consult an attorney on. Undue hardship is not something that I am interested in dealing with. I usually try to say, let's just try to find a better solution than trying to argue undue hardship, because it truly is a very challenging bar to hit. So there are a few takeaways from this that I think are really important for employers to understand. You need to make sure that you are communicating regularly with your employee and making sure that the accommodations that you are providing are something that is meeting their needs. You also need to make sure that you understand what your requirements are under the PUMP Act. One of the things that you may not have done is updated your employment law poster. Under the Fair Labor Standards Act section of your employment law poster, this is the part that has the minimum wage. If there is not a PUMP Act section within that part of your employment law poster, then I would highly encourage you to go out to the internet and print one off. And I can definitely put a link in the comments of this video for you to go out there and do that. This is one of the many complexities that you have to understand and make sure that you are able to navigate as an employer. And this is also a great opportunity for someone like me as an HR consultant to be able to come in and say, hey, it looks like we don't have that. You also want to make sure that you're updating your policies. So for my clients, I added the policy under the break and lunch policy section. I added a PUMP Act section on there. So people understand, women understand, and also other employees understand that this is something that we are required to do by law. So when an employee is getting up and leaving or taking so many breaks or expressing milk, other employees aren't getting frustrated and thinking that this employee is getting all these breaks and it's not fair to them. So as we know, those types of circumstances come up. So it's important that other employees have access to this information as well. This is a topic that I would cover under my subscription. So if you are interested in learning more about subscriptions with me, that is certainly something that I would love to discuss with you. One of my subscription packages is that you get an hour of my time every month. This is something that we would discuss, is when compliance issues come up or new things come up, or I'm seeing a lot of the same types of patterns within the employers that I work with. That's something that I will question you on and we can have a discussion about. Or if someone ends up needing to express milk, we can come up with a plan that's within the requirements of you as an employer to make sure that you are providing the right accommodations for your employees. I think that's enough for you guys today. I am going to be doing a video on the Pregnancy Workers Fairness Act within the next few weeks. That is something that is very detailed and there's a lot of questions and a lot of confusion on. And so I want to make sure that I'm spending the time necessary to get all the details down and provide you with as much information as I can in a format that you are able to understand and know what your takeaways are. So I hope you guys have a great day. Stay out of trouble out there, and we will see you next week for Paraphrase Friday.